Writers like Rainer Maria Rilke are very rare throughout history. They truly embody the spirit of salvation through art and creation, and they use their writings and their poems to look deeper into life, appreciate it for what it is, and also talk about transformation and love through it, as we will see in his Sonnets to Orpheus. The story goes that his wife gave him some image or pendant of Orpheus, and within a span of 3 weeks, he writes this brilliantly genius piece of German literature that, again, I'm very sad I don't know German and I have to read a translation, but I don't know how someone can use language so beautifully and so perfectly to express what he was feeling at that time. He obviously was influenced by a lot of mishaps earlier, or maybe immediately prior to this, namely the death of his daughter's friend and some other cousin at a very young age. So I'm sure all of these themes of duality with life and death being part of this eternal journey we are on, they are all coming from somewhere, and all of these events in his personal life come together at this one point in history, sometime in 1922 in Switzerland, in this, again, very pretty castle, if you can look it up, to write this brilliant piece of literature. What's the term? Fits of passion or stream of consciousness. He truly lived that artist life, quote unquote, where you put everything you've got into your words, and it connects to people in ways that even they cannot articulate. You know you've done something very special when you get there. Anyway, getting back to Orpheus, again inspired by Greek legend, I'll give a brief introduction to the tale itself and then get into the sonnets. I have quite a large list here because I found so many interesting passages and explanations, and my thoughts will run long, so this I'm expecting to be a longer video in general. So Orpheus, if you are really unaware of the tale, was the son of Apollo, I believe. He's the god of music. He has a lyre, which is a stringed instrument through which he sings, and it is said that even the animals in the forest, the trees, the stones, they couldn't stop listening to his music, and they resonated with that sound that Orpheus made. Okay, anyway, so that's Orpheus, this great musician. And then we have Eurydice. I forget her lineage, but she's supposed to be very pretty, and Orpheus falls in love with her, of course. And then she commits some sin for which she is admonished to the underworld, the upside down, if you will, where we have Hades and Persephone, if I remember right, who are the guardians, and Orpheus goes in search of his lover down there and convinces these gods to give back Eurydice, and the gods set one condition. They allow Eurydice to follow Orpheus back to reality, but, of course, there's a but. Eurydice has to follow him behind him, and Orpheus is not allowed to look back even once, right? So we have this dramatic scene where, again, the both of them walk back, and Orpheus again follows this path all the way to the finish line where he has to cross into our reality, but then something stops him. He doubts whether Eurydice is following him or not. There is some unsureness in his mind, and he looks back. All hell breaks loose. You can't do that, of course. The gods take back Eurydice, and Orpheus has to return to the real world, and he wanders through it, singing his sob story to anyone who will listen, warning them of having faith all the time. It is difficult, I know, to accept this story, but as it goes in many a Greek myth, it is supposed to teach us something, I believe. And the sonnets by Rilke are also meant to teach us a lot of things. And we'll get into that presently. So this is the brief overview of the story in itself. I gave a brief history of his personal life, which also is important and comes up quite frequently in the sonnets. There are some other mentions of Daphne and Esau, I believe, which some of you might find interesting, but I'm more interested in the way he portrays life and transformation and duality of life and death. So, with that brief introduction to Rilke's personal life and where he was when he was writing this, and the Greek myth itself, we can now get into the sonnets. These are thematically divided into two parts, and each has about 25 of them. So, the way I've structured this review is I'm going to go cherry pick some of the sonnets and share my thoughts about them. We're not going to read the entire sonnet, of course, just the lines that I found interesting. And the translation I'm using also has an explanation that I found really helpful in understanding what Rilke was trying to communicate. And I also have my own thoughts, which I will also add along with the explanation here. So let's see what Rilke is up to. Part 1, Sonnet 1. Yet even in that hush, a new beginning, hint and change was there, and where there was just barely a hut to receive it, a refuge out of their darkest yearning, with an entrance whose gaze posts trembled, there you crafted a temple for their hearing. You can see the economy of words that Rilke uses here is just insane, that he's able to convey so much in such few words. For example, the first line itself, yet even in that hush, and then we have a refuge out of their darkest yearnings, which again conveys so much, which means that, again, we as people, we as animals, as plants, we only have yearning, we have longing, we have wishes, and we have some sort of despair, something we want very badly. And there is barely any space in our hearts to receive any sort of change, any new beginning, spring, let's say. Even in such a desperate situation, with an entrance whose gatepost trembled, so even in such desperate times, you crafted a temple for their hearing. Your music was so brilliant that the stones, the trees, the forest, the animals, and the people were forced to listen to your brilliance. And isn't that what art is supposed to do? Get us out of our darkest times? Here's how the translator interprets it. Quote, hope in the midst of despair. Art forces us out of misery because it is so beautiful and we need it badly. Art, Rilke claims, has the power to provide not merely a simple and fragile, a trembling treescape, a refuge for the mind and its emotions, a refuge, that is, for our longings, our yearning, for performance and not transience, for life and not death, for joy and not suffering, for peace and not violence, but also a temple of art and the spirit. So we have again the theme of duality being established very early on, where we are longing for joy but we are suffering. We are longing for peace and not violence. We are longing for life and not death. So, in such a situation, only art is able to transcend these temporary things and become something eternal, an embodiment of the spirit in itself. Again, I'm not going to read the whole sonnets and their explanation for each of the lines. This review, I'm trying to condense it as much as possible, but the brilliance is hard to escape. One can spend days, even months, analyzing these and how you can connect to each of these sonnets. So, okay, let's move on quickly. And again, I have to mention that obviously all of this is an English translation. So if you know German, if you're lucky enough to do that, and if you read the original writings of Rilke, you will realize that there is a rhythm to his words. There is a rhyme scheme, obviously, but apart from that, there's also a song like feeling or a rhythm to all of his writings here. And this is not meant to be read like a poem. It is meant to be performed, it is meant to be sung, and that is another aspect of it which is lost in translation. So, again, we do what we can, and let's move on to the next sonnet. I picked third one. Sonnet number 3 of part 1. Song is being, a simple thing for a god, but when are we in being? And when does he turn the earth and stars towards us? And song here signifies art in general, be it painting or singing or music of any sort, which Orpheus again personifies. Art is life, and not the fame that comes with it or the commentary it provides on life. It is easy for Orpheus, so a simple thing for a god, that's what that means. And uh, do we mere mortals get to also be as omnipresent, as everlasting as the art does? I again always think back to the Mona Lisa. The person who painted it is strong dead, but his work remains, and the beauty, a thing of beauty, is joy forever, right? So, do we ever get to that stage, or is it only through our work that we will forever be remembered? Do we have that in us that makes us eternal? Can we achieve that through love, at least for ourselves? Let's say that Romeo loves Juliet, and that's the, again, embodiment of the extremes of love, let's say, and they were, again, remembered for eternity as examples. Can we, mere mortals, do that, or do we have to create art to get to that stage? Interesting, again, we can ponder this in more depth also, but I'd like to move on. Fourth, don't be afraid to suffer the heaviness. Return its weight once more to the earth. Mountains are heavy and the seas are heavy, even the trees you planted as children soon become too heavy. You cannot bear them, but the air, but the space. Everything you see around you becomes a burden that you cannot carry. And of course, the mountains and seas here are metaphors. I would assume it would mean something like the pain that you have suffered through your mishaps in your life. They are too great for any one man to bear on his shoulders forever. So you have to let go somehow, sometime. And what that time is obviously depends. But let's say you came out of a tough relationship and it's been, I don't know, an year or two. You are not equipped. And again, obviously, it's not healthy to hold on to that burden. So you have to let go at some point. And what you can do is put it on, put that burden on the earth and the air around you, which means that let nature handle these emotions. What a brilliant point that again makes evokes so many emotions in me, that you are just a vessel for these emotions, and the pain that you have gone through, you cannot bear them forever. So you let nature take care of it and pass it on to nature instead of holding it within you. Brilliant. Okay. Fifth, raise no gravestone. Let only the rose bloom every year to favor him, since it is Orpheus, his metamorphosis to this and that. We need not strive for other names. Once and for all, it is Orpheus when he sings. Any sort of art and any sort of music flows through Orpheus. And he is again the personification of a melody, something that gets to you through you. And we can call it by any name we want, but once and for all, it is Orpheus, this great Greek legend. Ninth, only within the double sphere will the voices become kind and eternal, because only by perceiving and appreciating the double realm of life and death will we experience the voices of the dead, for example, through our memories or dreams, or the art of past as positive, life giving, and enduring. It's how very interesting that he again brings up death in this context, where he says that only when you are living in this dual realm of life and death, this double sphere, will the voices become kind and eternal. And again, it's not a very difficult idea to grasp, saying that The dead are still with us even after they are gone out of their physical form, in forms of their memories and in our dreams. They are still alive, right? And they're trying to tell us something. But if you shut yourself out of that, then obviously they become dead. If you want a kind voice, if you want closure, if you want something that is eternal, that lives past their lifetime, you have to accept them through their memories and through what they're saying, through their voices in your dreams. And that is how you get to live beyond your lifespan. And you get to appreciate life and death equally instead of differentiating between something that is and something that was. So it is one true thing. Into this and that, how intricately written is this piece of literature. Insane. 12th, without knowing our own true place, we achieve real relationship. The antennae feel the antennae and suffer the distance between. How brilliant. How can. It just makes me cry. How beautifully written. See, every moment we are trying to understand ourselves and our place in this earth. Does that mean that we should not get into relationships, or we should not seek companionship, or any sort of communication between humans, whether in the romantic sense or otherwise? No, of course not. Even though we are always constantly questioning our own existence, we only do that through communication, and the result of that is a real relationship. We achieve real relationship. Here's how the translation puts it. Quote, seemingly miraculously, we possess empathy, such that without fully understanding what we are and how we function in space and time, we can still achieve real relationship with each other through the antennae of emotion. So using emotion to cut through the doubt, the self-doubt that we had, and the self-doubt that Orpheus had before he passed the finish line into the real world and looked back. So if you have, I don't know what Rilke exactly meant when he said that antennae feel the antennae, because it's a weird word to use here, right? We don't express emotions like that. It's cockroaches that do that. But are you saying that we should have blind faith when you say that without knowing our own true place, the antennae feel the antennae? So anyway, the point being that even though we can be questioning of our existence, we can still build some sort of foundation through emotion. We can build relationships on emotions. So again, getting back to the translator, quote, through language and in other ways, not excluding the purely physical, and with the world through experience, knowledge, and even emotionally through pathetic fallacy, where we feel the presence of identity, personality, etc., in other creatures and in non-conscious, non-sentient things. And then he continues, oh, experience feeling, infinite joy. And sorry, this was by Rilke. So he says that whatever you're feeling, experience it. Be it sadness or glee, whatever that emotion is, experience that feeling and find joy in that. There is boundless joy in that feeling itself. When you experience it, you will find infinite joy. Brilliant. 16. You, my friend, are lonely because, with our words, with our gestures, we gradually make this world our own. Our weakest, most perilous, perhaps. Brilliant. We are lonely because, with our words, with our daily routines, we make this world our own. Everything around you, from starting from your toothbrush when you wake up in the early morning, it's an object that is outside of yourself, but through your everyday actions, isn't that a part of you now? Just like your hand is, or your leg is, that you use to achieve different tasks. Isn't the table, isn't the chair you sit on some way you experience life? So you are making the world around you your own with your gestures. And how do you get to the world in its truest sense? When you use, you are vulnerable. So that is one. So that's what our weakest means, most perilous. So you have to be vulnerable and expose yourself. Bear out your heart to the world around you. And that's not just objects that I just mentioned, like a chair or a toothbrush, but even to people around you. Aren't they part of your life? When you expose your heart to them is when you make them part of your world. Brilliant. It just amazes me how someone can write such beautiful poetry. Sonnet 17. Men in fraternal rage, women like lutes, branch thrusting at branches, none of them free, one there. Oh climb, oh climb. How very interesting that he portrays men full of rage and women who are meek. And again, there are some other passages as well apart from this one where he again wrongly, in my opinion, objectifies women. And I'm not trying to stir up something here, but there are actually some passages that made me feel uncomfortable, something with deflowering and something like that. I didn't particularly connect to those, but again, at least in the archetypal sense, men are always full of anger and women are the subdued ones. So anyway, what that causes is branches thrusting at branches. They're trying to cling to something to climb up. None of them are free, and we are stuck in our everyday routines that we mundanely do every day. Oh, climb, oh, climb. So, this is a battle cry for all of us mortal human beings to transcend. And how do we do that? Translator's quote. He views society and history as one well might, as an endless realm of conflict, none of its participants free to develop and become themselves, except perhaps for the odd one here or there, poets in particularly, since poetry is one of the most ancient arts. He breathlessly exhorts those individuals to climb. So again, using art to express yourself and escape this rat race of fight and subordination. 18. See how the machine heaves and takes its revenge, distorting and weakening us, gaining its strength from us. Let it, without passion, urge us onward and serve. Rilke sees the machine age as distorting and weakening human nature. He wishes the machine to be set in its place as an emotionless servant and a means of supporting us, which also urges us onward as a species. How brilliant and how relevant it is to our times today, where AI ethics is in the picture. Should we treat them as human and they behave differently when we show them some kindness? Rilke is anti progress and anti machine here, at least. It definitely weakens our humanity and our human nature. When you see AI influencers on your Instagram feed evoking emotions that a regular human would, what's next? There'll be AI robots walking around us and they will make us feel ways that other humans made us feel. Do we accept that, and is that inevitable? He says that we lose our human nature every time we give them that power, give the AI and give the machines that power. So we have to look at them as tools, as a means of supporting us and urge us onwards. Okay. Alone now, sorry, this is 24. Alone now, wholly, dependent upon, yet not knowing each other. We no longer treat the paths as lovely meanders, but like flights of steps. Does anyone ever take a walk anymore? What happened to walking around aimlessly or driving around aimlessly? With phones in our hands, we always put the destination in our maps and we take this straight line path from A to B. Whatever happened to wandering around? Does anyone ever do that? Are there any meadows left at all? I haven't been to one in a very long time. Do people live that life at all? I'm not aware. And it's sad that we have lost that part of us somewhere. And he says here, but like flights of steps, every path has become just a way to get from point A to point B. And it's not just a defense of walking. Our mind wanders around earlier, right? Earlier, when I was a child, I remember thinking way too many thoughts. I still do, luckily for me, but we let our minds wander earlier. I very clearly remember this, and we have lost that now. Now you can blame this on your phones, on your overworked life, where you don't have any time outside of your 9 to 5 and your cooking and your sleep. I recognize that we don't have the kind of time to sit around and think at all. But does that not make us machines? Are we not supposed to wander in our minds and with our bodies at all? How far have we fallen as a species if this is what is required to survive? I recognize that work is important. I recognize that sleep is important, but I believe that it comes at a cost. And it comes at the cost of letting go of your mind to wander. If you can't do that, what's the use of doing anything else? If you don't have a single unique thought of your own that you didn't see on your phone, and you just parrot what you see around you, shouldn't you be allowed, and shouldn't you allow your mind to wander and think for itself and develop something on its own? Because that is what makes you unique, not the things that everyone does. Everyone has a routine. That doesn't make you any different from anyone else but those unique thoughts. So shouldn't that be your focus rather than on the other things that merely make you exist? And again, we get back to the classic quote of we should always try to live and not just exist. Brilliant. And again, all of this is making us more and more lonely and dependent upon. So see how brilliantly he writes it. Alone now, wholly. So we are obviously completely lonely, dependent upon, yet not knowing each other. We still require the services of the people around you. You still need uh, your maid to clean up your house, or you need your postman to deliver your mail. You still need, but there is no connection between you two anymore. You don't know his name at all, do you? So you still need services, but the humanity that was once there is lost because the human mind is no longer allowed to wander and think for itself. And we don't allow our body to roam freely, go wherever it wants. If you take away anything from this review, it is my suggestion that go out, take a walk without your phone, and go to places you normally would not. Take a turn where you wouldn't and see what's there. I'm sure you'll find something new, something different. Isn't that progress enough from your mundane life? That's the least you can do. And I do it myself all the time. I'm always seeking for new things to do, new places to go to. So why shouldn't you? It's okay. Loneliness always is a very interesting topic to me. So again, moving on, let's see. 26. While your sounds still lingered in lions and stones and in birds and trees, you're still sinking there. Though Orpheus was torn apart by Maenades, his art still lingered on, his sound echoing in living things. It is said that when Orpheus returned to the real world after losing Eurydice, whichever town he went to next, it is said that he heard his music being played there. How touching. O lost God, O everlasting sign of the way, only through enmity that tore you to shreds, are we the hearers, the mouth for nature. Orpheus is a lost god in the sense of being both assassinated in the myth and a neglected personification of poetry, life, and spirit in the modern world. Yet he represents a single signpost to artists and to all who wish to develop and express themselves, pointing to the creative mode of living. Only through absorbing the lesson of two realms, the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth, only through listening, hearing that music, can we be a mouthpiece for celebration and praise of this world. Moving on to part two. Second, oh, who can know of our losses on earth? Ah, what a brilliant line. That's just 5 or 6 words, and you said so much. There is no one on earth who can understand what we have lost. And again, this is obviously different for every individual. You might have lost a lover, a parent, a job, an emotion. I, for example, don't get angry. I've lost that, for example, although I don't complain about it. Sorry, bad example. Let's see what the translator says. Rilke sings his theme, the transience of life, which forever involves loss, and part of our self-discovery and self-creation is the challenge of coping with loss, whether through suffering, death, violence, impairment, or failure of memory, loss of the lover, loss of the child, loss of life itself. And who can know the sum of the species losses on earth, he asks, which also involve the vanishing of cultures, of artifacts, of texts. We have lost so much in the world around us, and often within ourselves. There is a continual series of losses. So this is life, huh? It's a series of losses, and then you lose your life. Interesting. How only those voices nonetheless praise who sing of the heart and born to wholeness. Only those, Rilke claims, who also appreciate the value of life, art, and the spirit, and who praise and celebrate life and its manifestations, only those who are born to embrace life and death as one complete whole, and sing of and from the heart that aspect of mind which represents the emotional and spiritual truth of life, only they live. That's the entirety of Rilke's philosophy, I believe. When you accept all the suffering, all your losses, and still sing praises from the heart of all of these experiences, be it good or bad, and you praise it nonetheless. You praise life and death equally. Only those get to live a fulfilling life. Brilliant. I have no words. God, I wish I knew German. Okay, next one. Eighth. Carts passed us, vanishing strangers. Houses surrounded us, solid but untrue. None knew us. What was real in it all? Oh, how brilliant again. I remember in my childhood, we used to play street games, right? So many days were spent like that. We had children, other children around me. I did. We had houses around us, but we didn't know who lived there, at least in some cases. We didn't know them and they didn't know us. And today, when I sit here, much older, all of that exists only in my memory, right? I have no idea what happened to those people, what happened to those houses, what happened to the cars that passed us when we were playing as kids. Those exist today in my mind alone. I don't know whether they exist today or not. Some might not. Was it real? It was real at that time, sure, but is that real today? Or is it something that exists only in my mind, only in my memory, and a collective memory of few of my peers at that time, let's say? Here's a better way to phrase it. Quote, Rilke describes the world of childhood, separated from the mysterious adult world, and often oblivious to it, the child's reality being more of the spirit and less of the material world beyond, while childhood inhabits an inner sphere almost invisible, almost to that of adults. How true! When we were childs, we had something in us, some innocence that is lost today in adults. As soon as we achieve maturity, let's say, we have some change in our consciousness. I remember this moment again also very clearly of when childhood ended and adulthood started. It's very hard for me to describe that here. I don't know if there are any words to do it as well, but it was a very distinct moment in my head where everything before that was an illusion, a world that I had created in my own mind that is lost today because as an adult I know too much and I see the world differently and I perceive it differently and I know how it works. There is no magic to it anymore, which the child's mind has. How very interesting that we always take the advice of don't let the child in you die, and yet here we are. If anyone is listening to this as intently as I am speaking right now, I intend on following up this book with another book that embodies this philosophy of keeping the child in you alive. With I think it's called The Little Prince. It's a very popular book again by Exupery. I'll I'll get to it soon, and I'm making a promise of never to let the child in me die. All right, enough. Moving on. 213. Be in front of all parting, as though it were now behind you, like the winter gone by. Because among winters is one so endlessly winter. Only by overwintering does your heart still survive. Only when you accept loss, only when you are pummeled down into the dirt endlessly, do you get to survive another one that is coming next year. And obviously, this has nothing to do with seasons, but how we deal with losses. If you have your fair share of losses in your life and misery in your life, and only those who have accepted those and processed those, only those people get to live to see the next loss in their life, right? If you give up at any of your previous losses, you won't get to the next loss. So it's a very tongue in cheek way of putting it, I believe. Be always dead in Eurydice, climb with more singing, climb with praising back to pure relation. Here, in the failing place, the exhausted realm, be a sounding glass that rang as it shattered. Wow, there is so much going on here. I could talk on just this four lines for an hour easily. I won't bore you with that, but just look at the last line. Be a sounding glass that rang as it shattered, even though you are broken because of everything you see around you, your circumstances, let's say. Still, you have to have the courage, you have to have the spirit in you, that human spirit that no one can take away from you, undeniable. Be a sounding glass that rang. And rang here again goes back to how he says that we should praise everything. Climb with praising back to the pure relation. That emotion that is within you is the only true thing. Be always dead in Eurydice. Quote, we should learn, he suggests, to retain the memory of that state of loss within, personified here as Eurydice, she who was lost to Orpheus, as he looked back towards her, and yet, like Orpheus, we must climb back again to the world above. So obviously, Orpheus was getting back from the netherworld, right? I've explained this myth earlier. And once more, praise its and our existence, despite the pain of change and loss. How brilliant. We always wish things were as it were before, but again, we know that the only thing that doesn't change is change itself. So only those who have accepted that, accepted the losses, get to live ahead. And it's not like you bury that loss or that relationship that you lost. You can retrieve that relationship with external reality. Brilliant. 19. Sorry, there are a few, I think 10 more sonnets left. I won't take too much of your time after this. I'll try to wrap it up quickly. 219. If but one watcher might comprehend and praise in amazement that endless feat of endurance, sayable to those who sing, audible to the god. If only someone, some watcher, Orpheus perhaps, were able to understand and to commend our feat of endurance, our living despite our wretched existence, transient, prone to destruction as we are. Oh, we are so vulnerable, we are so fragile, a condition which we can write about here, while a god could directly hear and comprehend the human condition without our speaking it. If only there was a watcher who could do that. 23. Anxious, we long for something to hold, often too young for what is ancient, too old for what never existed. Again, I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but there is this, again, quote that we are too young, and we, by we I mean not the human race, but our current generation presently is too early to experience space travel and all of the other great supposedly scientific advancements. So we are too early for that, but we are too young to be, yeah, we are too young to experience that advanced level of science, and we are too old to go back to the blissness of our Neanderthal ages, where again people lived purely on emotion and feelings. So it's we are neither here nor there. But one thing is constant: we all keep wanting something, don't we? Quote, it is a feature of our existential angst that we long for such fixity and permanence, something to take hold of in the flow of being and living. We, who are often too naive to understand the achievements and hard-won wisdom of the past, and yet at the same time too experienced and habituated to modern life to fully appropriate the flights of the imagination that a child indulges in, or the more imaginative products of past art. We truly hear only when we praise. We that, alas, are the branch and the axe, and the sweetness of ripening danger. Yet we are truly present, truly alive and aware, not when we are anxious and yearning, but when we are filled with life enough to praise our being here, wherever here is and whatever it signifies. How brilliantly put! It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what you are going through or what that signifies. It is enough to praise our being here. Our existence is reason enough to be happy, content. Isn't it a miracle that I clapped right now? Beautiful. We are both a branch of the tree of life and the axe that attacks it and questions it. We are the perpetual risk takers seeking to destabilize that life through intellectual analysis, technology, and social change. We are constantly in a state of flux, trying to achieve something better by breaking what was before. So instead of crying about all the change, accept it, appreciate it even, and sing praises of it forever. This was Sonnet 23. There are a few more, but getting into those, again, if you are interested, I might make a separate hour-long lecture on those. But again, they are too dense, especially the last one where he culminates all of this into I am flowing, I am being. And obviously, Rilke expresses it in much better words, but the emotions it evoked in me, I don't think there are any words that would do them justice. Instead, I would like to read out a few sonnets in full that are so unique in the way they are written. And I promise I wouldn't take again too much of your time. I wouldn't pass the 1 hour mark for sure. Here, let's go with part 1, Sonnet 12. Hail to the spirit that holds us together, since we only exist by shape and form, and in minuscule steps the clock ticks, set beside our actual day. Without knowing our own true place, we achieve real relationship. The antennae feel the antennae, and suffer the distance between. Pure tension, O music of forces! Is it not through a venial struggle that disasters deflected from you? Though the anxious farmer labors so that the seed becomes harvest, it is never enough. Earth must bear. Next one. Oh, here is one of my favorites, and this is on food, right? Sonnet 13, part 1. Fullness of apple, pear, blackcurrant, gooseberry. It all speaks life and death in the mouth, I anticipate. Go read it in some child's face. As they taste it, it comes from afar. Are you slowly becoming nameless in your own mouth? Where there were words, find a flow. Strangely surprised from the flesh, dare to say what an apple is called, this weakness that deepens within, gently ripening in taste, to become clear, alive, and transparent, ambiguous, sun-kissed, earthy, and here, oh, experience feeling, infinite joy. How brilliant! And just the idea that as a child, look at a child's face when it's eating food, and it's hard to explain in words how the child can explain this phenomena. He put something in his mouth that was solid, right? And he experienced something in his mind, which is its taste. Is there any way you can articulate the taste? You can call it sweet or bitter, whatever the object is, but that's only a word. That has nothing to do with the apple, right? And as soon as he ingested that piece of solid flesh and tissue, apple tissue, let's say, it disappeared within the child, which means it died. Is there any way to experience this other than the beauty, the magic of food? Isn't that how all of us are supposed to eat? Every single time you have lunch, why would you not think of this? That you did something that made you feel a certain way that has no words at all. It gave you life, it disappeared within you, and the beauty of food is experienced through that, not in calling yourself a foodie or posting food pictures. Are you truly able to appreciate what you are eating? I just like this, again, first four lines. Fullness of apple, pear, blackcurrant, gooseberry, it all speaks life and death. Isn't that the entire lifespan of us humans as well? We exist and then we die. Didn't that apple go through the same process? It was also a flower once. It was also a plant once. Then it passed into nothingness. In the mouth I anticipate, go read it in some child's face. Brilliant, it disappeared in your mouth. What a brilliant way to put it, Jesus. I can't keep doing this. Let's very quickly see and read out a few more of my favorites. I really want to keep this in. Okay, one last one. This is sonnet number 19 of part 2. And here Rilke talks about money and beggars. And again, there are a lot of metaphors going on here. I'm not going to, again, dissect this in detail. Quote, in the bank somewhere, gold is accommodated. It lives on close terms with thousands. But here the blind beggar is like the location of some lost coin, is akin to some dusty corner under the cupboard. Money, it would seem, is at home in the stores, clothing itself there in silk, furs, carnations. He, the silent one, stands here where it pauses for breath, all that wealth, speaking or waking. Oh, how does it close at night, that ever open hand? Pale and wretched and wholly destructible, tomorrow fate overtakes it, extends it to all. But if one watcher might comprehend and praise in amazement that endless feat of endurance, sayable to those who sing, audible to the god. End quote. And that's it. That is the brilliant Rilke for you. Anyone who is interested in poetry, in life and death and duality and transformation and music and art and how you can use those to climb and praise. If you're into Greek myth, if you're into a complicated poet with a very complicated relationship with life and in life, this Sonnets to Orpheus is for you. Do pick it up for sure. Highly recommend it. Easily 10 on 10. There's no other way to rank this piece of work at all. It is beyond words. I don't know rating makes sense or not at all here. I just used it to emphasize that if you have the time to indulge, then choose this. It's again difficult to understand everything on your first pass, but with time and in serene moments when you let your mind wander, I'm sure some of these sonnets will come back to you. I'm sure of it. And as it did for me, I hope the same for you. So thank you for listening and happy reading.